Hello, I'm Lumlang Ryntathiang, pastor in one of the churches here in Shillong, and I'm glad that we can have these teaching sessions under the umbrella of Chattan, so that we can all learn, grow, and become fruitful in the Lord. The first teaching that we're going to start today is called Love, the Greatest Commandment. Perhaps before we move on, I'd like to pose a question. If love is really the greatest commandment, why do we have so many fightings? Why do we have so many disagreements? Why do we have so many fightings and divisions in a church? It's all because we have not really come to terms with the truth of this very foundational teaching of Christian life. Now, as we've said, the topic is love, the greatest commandment. Now, the commandment is the first and most important commandment that runs through as a theme in the entire Bible. Generally speaking, it is commonly understood to be just an emotion or a feeling only. But let me say this at the onset, it is more than a feeling or a state of emotion. The Bible gives us a better perspective of what love is. Now, the Greek language gives us different Greek words to describe love. Basically, they are classified into two broad categories. They are divine love, or agape, and human love, or phileo. Even phileo has different shades of meaning of love. Parental love, friendly love, neighborly love, and all that. But let's go to Matthew 22, and I'll read verses 34 to 40. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. One of them, an expert in the law, tested him with the question, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like this, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments." Now, Jesus, in this passage, addressed the Pharisees who were experts of the law, that the first and the greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and even your strength. The second one is to love our neighbor as ourselves. It may be said that law number one is incomplete without law number two. In other words, number two is complementary to number one. Now, number one is to love God with all our heart, meaning the center of life. Heart is not just a component, but in the Hebrew, it speaks about the personality, the entirety of our human life. We are to love Him with all our heart. That means the very center of life should be under love. And then with all our soul. Soul is the seat of our relationships and all interactions. We've got to love Him even through and by relationships and express it even in our interactions. Then he says, love the Lord with all your mind. I like to think of the mind as the control room of all our thoughts, our skills, our abilities, our gifts. So even all these elements or traits are to be a means of expressing a love to God. Then it also says, and we read this in Mark, it says to love God with all our strength. And I like to think about strength as the storeroom of all our energies and passions. We've got to love God with all our heart, all our soul, all our mind, and all our strength. Now, one important factor that must be kept in mind here is that these two laws of loving God and loving neighbor are like two tracks of a train. Train cannot run on a single track. So if we say we love God, and if that is the first and the greatest commandment, then it's equally important for us to also imbibe the second law in our lives. Because we cannot really say we love God without loving our neighbor. So, if we claim to be people of the kingdom, then we must not only subscribe to its rules, but strive to live, to prove that they are real, practical, and effective. Love God and love neighbor. Neighbor does not mean an acquaintance. If you look at the context of what Jesus was talking to that expert of the law as we read in Luke, a neighbor is someone we meet in their time of need. Let me repeat. A neighbor is someone we meet in time of need. So, loving God is a vertical relationship, and it is expressed through our worship and meditation, our communion and prayer, and reading of the Word. While loving neighbor is a horizontal relationship expressed through our interaction and good deeds that add value to others. So in closing, let me say this. Loving God is the first and the greatest commandment, and it is inseparable from the law number 2, or the second commandment, which is loving our neighbor. Because Jesus said here, all the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. So no matter how much we know about the scriptures and what good things we do in life, but unless they're based on these 2 tracks of loving God and loving neighbor, all our efforts would be in vain. So I trust the Lord will bless you as you continue to grow in the Word and really take this Word, internalize it, and begin to live it out. God bless you.